Okay, let's finish off with Arsenal and a possible movement there, whether there might be a couple of players going out on loan. Ben White, Chris, played well last night, didn't he? Hasn't featured that much, but his future is unclear. But did he show his value last night to the squad? And Arsenal do have a lot of defensive injuries at the moment.
Goal and assist, right? So, yes, he did show his value, probably more than he's done all season. But look, we know with Ben White, we know how highly Mikel Arteta talks about him, how hard he trains, how much of a competitor he is. And again, this Arsenal now are heading into their absolute crunch point of the season. They need all the players they can get, and especially in defensive positions as well. You know, Mosquera's been out, obviously Calafiori's been out. So I think that is one area. We know Mikel Arteta loves defenders. So we know that is one area he's definitely not going to compromise. So I think Ben White, interest from Europe, but he stays.
Yeah, and Miles Lewis-Skelly, another one we might talk about in the future in the window. Arsenal want to keep hold of him, but he might want a loan move as well. Striker, guys, Crystal Palace, Everton and Nottingham Forest as well need a striker. Striker market very hard to deal in because they're often very costly, in high demand, especially in January. Of course, in the summer, it really was the transfer window of the big name striker, wasn't it? We saw some big striker moves. We're trying to have a look at some of them now because we spent a lot of time talking about these players. These are the big players that we've picked, the 6 big strikers that were signed in the summer for big money. Ekitike, Voltemada, Gyokeres, Šeško, Isak and Wissa. There was a lot of movement, wasn't there? But have they made the impact that was expected, Chris, given the outlays that we saw?
I mean, yeah, well, it's lovely order there on the graphics, so we can kind of go down on who's done best to worst. Wasn't expecting that. So
descending.
Well done, my graphics team. Look,
debatable.
Hugo Ekitike, I think, undeniable success. Obviously injured at the moment. Nick Voltemada as well. I think Newcastle will be very happy with that return. I think now we go down the list and we start to see where there might be some misses rather than hits. Viktor Gyokeres came to Arsenal as somebody who was meant to be guaranteeing goals. We're talking about ready-made goals and a ready-made goal scorer. 5 in 19 with a few of those as penalties. I don't think they would have been happy with that return, although Mikel Arteta is saying that he would improve. Same for Benjamin Šeško as well. I think 4 in 17, we expected more there. Isak, we know he got off to a slow start because of his pre-season, and Wissa as well was injured for the first part of the season. But it's just interesting at the moment. You look at the Premier League top goal scorer chance. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's up there on a free transfer. Bruno Guimaraes as a midfielder is up there with 8 goals. Antoine Semenyo is a winger. We know that football's played slightly differently these days, so wingers often do find themselves up in them goal-scoring charts. But to me, it's no surprise that teams are looking around for strikers because at the moment, it just doesn't seem like teams are getting their value for money, or they certainly haven't from that graphic this window.
The 2 that you quite rightly you picked out there, Chris, Šeško and Gyokeres, maybe the 2 that I've expected a bit more from if you were Manchester United or Arsenal. When you look at those numbers, how much of that do you think is down to the teams still not quite fully understanding what their strengths are and how to play to their strengths?
And it's a tough gig when you come into Manchester United or Arsenal as a big name, big money striker. I think with Arsenal, they've played for so long and played so well without that big target man number 9. They're probably not, it's took them a while to get used to playing to his strengths, and then you don't want to take away from what you was doing anyway if you're Mikel Arteta. But I do think Gyokeres, he'll get there. I think we're seeing improvements in him, even last night. And Šeško, exactly the same. So he's looked completely out of sorts, but in a team that looks out of sorts a lot of the time anyway, although they're not having a bad season. But Manchester United, you just don't really know what you're going to get. So imagine going into that as a striker and you're not sure when the ball's going to arrive or if it's going to arrive or from where. But I do think in the last game we saw a different Šeško, especially in that second half against Burnley, where he got his goals and he looked like the real deal. So sometimes we expect a little bit to him. We expect him to hit the ground running, but that is football these days, and it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you get an Ekitike who just comes and looks brilliant straight away, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It's a bit more of a slow burn. So I think both of those 2 will come good, Šeško and Gyokeres.
And I think with those 2 as well, I don't think anyone was under any illusions that they would 100% come in and take the league by storm. Sesko's playing in the Bundesliga, still very young. Gyokeres, the Portuguese league, just so different in terms of defensively and how he would get his goals. If you look at his kind of, his YouTube reel, his highlights, there was no way he was going to replicate that style in the Premier League playing for Arsenal. So I think Mikel Arteta's talked about the job he's doing away from scoring goals. I think that's to protect him a little bit because he definitely will want more goals from him. But last night was good for him. Got his tap in, got his assist. So I'm sure that they'll be expecting him to kick on now.
All right, we've got loads to come here on Good Morning Transfers. For example, will Manchester United's transfer plans be impacted by the arrival of Michael Carrick? Plus, will Lucas Paquetá leave West Ham this month? Stay tuned. Santos left-back Sousa is expected to have his Tottenham Hotspur medical in London today ahead of a £13 million move. Aston Villa forward Donyell Malen is in Italy ahead of completing his loan move to Roma. Nottingham Forest and Everton are both interested in the Fenerbahce striker Youssef En-Nesyri. Crystal Palace are confident of signing a deal to sign Sidiki Sharif from the French club Angers. Sunderland want to keep hold of Romain Mundle despite growing interest from the likes of Feyenoord and Rangers. Celtic and Derby County are among a number of clubs across Europe who have expressed an interest in the Chelsea striker David Datro Fofana. And Rangers have completed the signing of left-back Tur Romens from